Hiya, I'm here today with Alex Green. Alex is a reporter for Plymouth Live, and he also reports for DevonLive and CornwallLive, and they are Reach PLC news sites. So Alex, how are you today?
Hello, thank you for having me. Yeah, I'm good, thank you.
Good. We'll get started with how you got into journalism. Could you just tell us how you did that?
Of course, yeah, it's a little bit of an interesting way in, I guess. I studied journalism at university here in Plymouth, at Plymouth Marjon University, and then I was lucky enough to go straight from that before I even graduated into an intern job, working at the university as a marketing intern.
Oh.
Which wasn't necessarily what I wanted to do straight away. Obviously, didn't picture going into marketing or anything like that straight off the bat. But I really loved it, and it gave me a chance to sort of try my hand at loads of different stuff, like writing press releases and really honing in my writing skills, but also working on things like photography and video projects as well. And that was great. And I did that for about 10 months. And then I heard about opportunities opening up at PlymouthLive, which is the sort of like the big local regional newspaper here, and the PlymouthLive website as well is obviously very profound in the city. So I spoke to my lecturer and got some tips and went for the job, and was lucky enough to obviously secure an interview. And then I was very lucky and got the job. And I started out as a bit of a different way in, but I started off as a live and trending reporter. And I was initially reporting across all of Plymouth, Devon and Cornwall, so quite a big patch, on things like live incidents like traffic and crime stories and things like that, breaking news. And I did that for 6 months before moving over to my role, which I'm in now, which is just a reporter for Plymouth.
Okay, brilliant, excellent. Yeah. And the internship then was very beneficial, was it?
Yeah, it was great. It was a really good way. Like I say, I had lots of support, so there was no real huge pressure on me to get everything right straight away, because it's an internship. It was very much understood that, okay, we know you've got certain skills, but we can teach you a lot too. And that was really, really great.
Yeah.
And that sort of, even just within that 10-month period, I managed to sort of develop my skills quite a lot, and I gained a lot of confidence. And I think had I not done that, I wouldn't have been ready to go straight into a high pressure newsroom.
Yes.
Having those skills behind me, really, really helped.
Excellent. Brilliant. Well, then we'll move on to the next one. And that's what story have you written that you're most proud of, or that you enjoyed writing the most?
Oh, this is a tricky one because we do so many. It's hard to pick. I had to think, and I think recently I've been sort of covering a topic which has taken a lot of my time, and it's probably sort of, for want of a better phrase, proper journalism, especially in local news. But there's been a huge GP crisis here in Plymouth.
Okay.
People struggling to see their doctor, basically. And that's been obviously a thing nationally for quite a while as well, with a transition in how GP services are being provided in the country as well, with things moving online and things. But recently I wrote a story after speaking to several patients of surgeries under a certain group called Mayflower Medical Group here in Plymouth. And that was a really tricky story to write, because the patient's stories were sort of alleging things that we had to go to the medical group for statements on and things like that. But it just felt really important, because these people it's obviously their lives are being pretty massively affected. And it was sort of the first time I'd been given scope to, or had the chance to, since obviously things calmed down with the pandemic and everything, to go and do something like that. And then even more recently, off the back of that first story, which did quite well and I was happy with, the CQC, the Care Quality Commission, published a report on the group, which showed that the surgeries were actually inadequate. And obviously that's really great. It's not great news, but it's great for patients who are reporting these problems, and perhaps having their messages fall on deaf ears. So it was great to be a part of that, I guess. To sort of feel like you're doing something that's very important to a lot of people here in the city.
Raising the awareness, and then hopefully that helped them to get their story listened to,
Yeah, I'd like to think so, yeah.
Brilliant, well done.
Thanks.
If you could write about anything, then what would it be and why? And it can be like anything at all.
I don't know. This is a really tough one. I think from sort of like a young age, I've always been interested in sort of like just people, I guess, but more importantly, I think I've always been very, very passionate about like human rights and things like that. And obviously I'm a local news reporter, but I guess like if I could write about anything at all, I guess to be one of those sort of like hard hitting, like investigative human rights reporters that covers all that sort of stuff. Like when I was younger, I think the reason I sort of got into journalism to start off with is I sort of used to admire all those reporters that would go out into different countries and find out certain things that were going wrong and where human rights were being ignored, essentially. But I'd love to be involved in anything like that, really. Writing about sort of inequalities and things like that. And obviously we try and do that in what we do.
Of course,
locally as well.
Brilliant. What is your favorite book and what is the last book you've read? And they can be the
My
same.
favorite book is I'd say it's Fight Club. It's a great book, obviously a great film too, but the book is so good. The most recent book I've read is All the President's Men, which is all about the two reporters who worked on the Watergate crisis. And did all that investigative stuff. And that was really great. That was a recommendation from someone I was on a media course with. And I read that and that was brilliant.
Brilliant. Can I ask you as well about Fight Club? Did you read the book first or did you see the film first?
I saw the film first. I'll admit I did.
You know, sometimes you read the book and then the film doesn't quite,
I really wish I'd read the book first because I think you do have that sort of, what's happened in the film, so you're like constantly comparing and
you can see the characters.
So in the book I had Ed Norton and Brad Pitt, whereas actually that may not have been obviously it wouldn't have been the case if I hadn't seen the film first. But I think it's one of those examples actually of where like the book, it wasn't ruined because I'd seen the film, it just made it better. Good.
What current issue interests you the most and why? And it could be a human rights thing or it can be something different, whatever you think.
Another tricky one, I think. Again, maybe the primary care stuff. I think that's where my head is sort of most at the moment, especially obviously locally here in Plymouth. It seems to be one of the things that's affecting people the most, perhaps because obviously things have been even more changed because of the pandemic and primary care services are being provided in a different way and it's sort of evolving every day. But that's sort of where I spend most of my time, I think. Talking to people about that sort of thing. And even when I'm covering a different story, sometimes it comes up in conversation and then you end up having a chat about that. So, I'd say sort of like the primary care situation in Plymouth, but also nationally. But if I can, second choice, solid second choice, maybe even joint top, is the cladding crisis. So I've been covering that a lot too. And that's obviously huge. And for something as big as it is, I know it gets a lot of coverage, but I don't think it gets enough really. I think there's a lot, especially from a perspective of the people who are actually affected, the leaseholders who are in these properties and are being whacked with huge fees as a result. But those two things are sort of like top of my interest list at the moment, I think.
Brilliant. Is there any famous writers or journalists that inspire you or that you're like that you admire?
There's loads, but if I had to pick one, I really, really like Marina Hyde. She writes for The Guardian. She's just a great columnist and an example of someone who just doesn't hold back. And you sort of, I always sort of wait for her take on something because she's just so, her opinions are obviously her opinions and that's fine, but just the way that she expresses those opinions through the written word are just flabbergast me. She's just so good at it. But I think either Marina Hyde I've always had a massive sort of like career crush on like Trevor McDonald. I think the guy's a legend and a saint and brilliant and has inspired generations of journalists. So
definitely. Brilliant. Can I ask then, what is the best part of your job and then what's the worst part of your job?
The best part of my job is like I said before, it's just getting to be a part of something that feels meaningful. Giving people a platform to actually voice their concerns, and when you get that positive feedback from someone who's happy with the story that you've written, and they really sort of appreciate that you giving them that platform, and you providing that sort of platform for them to be able to get their voice heard, that's amazing. That's probably the best part of the job, I'd say.
Lovely.
The worst part of the job is probably sort of the negative vibe and atmosphere there is on social media around journalism and reporting. We get a lot of abuse, maybe is a strong word, but we get a lot of negative feedback and abuse via social media. And that can be really nasty, you know, because at the end of the day, I understand that we absolutely should be held accountable for what we do.
Of course.
100%. But sometimes it's not that. It isn't someone holding you to account. It's just someone having a go at you because they, I don't know, they want to. They don't like you. They want to. And that's really, it's really hurtful a lot of the time, you know. And that's, I think, a lot of journalists, most of the reporters that I work with and speak to every day, say sort of in the last sort of few years, that's got a lot worse as well. I think because people sort of hide behind their social media profiles and they're not face to face, they feel like they can say more hurtful things, and that's really, it's a shame, because I know, like I say, I'm up for being criticized for stuff that I do. That's brilliant. It keeps us in line. It keeps us constantly wanting to improve. That's absolutely fine. And we encourage that. But when we're getting personal messages that are just not pleasant at all, that ruins things sometimes, because we all try really hard to do our best.
Yeah, it must be so difficult. It really must. And that is something that has come up a number of times with different people that I've been talking to as well. And it just seems like, you know, you said the best part of the job is the positive feedback you get from the people. And, you know, but I'd say even if you got 100 messages that were positive from someone, that one bit of negative personal criticism for no reason would be the one that would hit you the hardest, nearly. You know, it's just, it's such a shame. And these people are just behind nothing, you know, there's no identity there. There's nothing to hold them to account. And of course, journalists will be held to account. Of course, that is part of journalism. But
absolutely,
when you're being hit over something that has nothing to do with your job, or you know, by some random person that won't even show you who they are, I think it's very, very wrong. And I really feel for you guys. I really, really do. You know,
I mean, I think we develop sort of like a thicker skin to it, you know, because particularly Facebook, if I had to pick one platform, it's just one of those platforms where people do somehow feel entitled to be nasty to other people, and on any level, whether that's in a professional sense or not, is not okay. But like you say, it's there's no reasoning behind some of it. It's just, oh, you're really young and you're fresh out of uni, you need to go back to school, you know, that sort of thing. It's like, I mean, come on, we're trying our best here. We're doing but I'd say that's probably the worst part. But there's lots and lots of positives.
Of course, and we'll keep pushing with the positives here, and we'll say, have you got any tips for aspiring journalists? And maybe 3 things.
So I think top tip that I sort of have ever been given myself, and that I would recommend the most, is just to have an open mind. Because, like I said at the beginning, my way into journalism was very sort of unorthodox way of getting in. And I sort of, when I took that first job as an intern, I thought, oh, have I sort of ruined my chances of getting a job as in the news or doing something more journalistic? And that just wasn't the case. It was actually a case of thinking about what you can gain from different experiences. And like I say, being open-minded to something that you maybe would think initially, well, that's not what I want to do. Obviously, if it isn't something you want to do, then don't do it. But I think be a little bit more open-minded and think, what can I gain from that? Can I actually develop my skills and perhaps use those and move them on into a different career move in the future? Another tip I'd say is to, it sounds silly as a reporter, but to really work on your listening skills. Because I think people can be good at talking and think they're good at listening, but actually to really listen is quite hard. And hear what someone's trying to say, because especially if you're covering something maybe contentious or something that's someone's quite passionate about, they'll hint at things and say things without actually saying it, and you need to be good at picking up on that to be able to get the best possible version of that story, and also to be able to sort of navigate if someone's maybe a little bit shy and they don't quite know what to say. It's being a good listener is the absolute best skill you can have as a journalist, I think.
That's a really, really good tip. Yeah.
And then I don't know, one more, I think, just do what you care about. I think that's the most important thing, because in my job as a reporter, I care about people and I want to help in situations. Sometimes my stories aren't about that. They're about things rather than people. But when those stories are people focused, that's when my best work comes out, I think, because I care so much that I'm going to make sure that this story is absolutely spot on, and it's going to hopefully at least help to achieve the outcome that the person came to us looking to achieve, you know. So if someone's come to us saying, look, I'm concerned about this, I'm going to make sure that I'm as concerned as they are, at least at first. Objectively, of course, as a reporter, but I want to make sure that I'm there with them, and that I'm sort of passionate about covering that story to the best ability that I can. Hopefully that's enough.
Perfect. And then we'll finish off on one thing about yourself that's not related to journalism in any way, and this can be as random or funny or, you know, just whatever. It's one thing about yourself not related to journalism.
I don't know. I am actually, so I don't know, one thing that I guess shocked my colleagues the most, which might be something that's interesting to hear, is that I'm actually from the north of England. Right. I live in Plymouth, but I was born in Barnsley, and grew up in the north. And so I think it's just, that has a big impact on my life, I think. And it's one of those things most people don't necessarily know, because I don't always just bring it up. You know, you don't go, hi, I'm Alex, I was actually born 400 miles away. But I was born in the north, and there is a big difference between the north of England and the south, I think. So
and do you think that really comes across in your personality then? Do you think you have that sort of like northern sort of personality, or?
I think I can be quite loud and quite brash sometimes, and I think those are characteristics of sort of especially South Yorkshire, where I'm from. But weirdly as well, when I go back up there, I just instantly change back and have like a really strong northern accent. So it's like speaking a different language, and then I come back and my friends and like my partner, she doesn't understand a word I'm saying. And then when people find out, they're like, oh, say this word. It's always a good icebreaker.
Good stuff. Well, thanks for sharing it with us. And Alex, if people want to find out more about you, where can they find you?
So I'm on all the social media channels you'd expect. So I've got Twitter, Facebook. You can head to my reporter page, just Alex Green. Same on Twitter. Also on Legitimate, of course. And LinkedIn, all the usual places.
Excellent. And if people want to find out more about us, you can find us on Twitter at legitimate_app or legitimate.io. And Alex, thanks so much for your time today. It was great to get talking to you.
Thank you for having me. It's been brilliant.
Thank you. Bye-bye.